Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to work the assignment that originally was made for Photoshop, that was for week 13, and recreate, or rather mimic, a website using a photo editor. If you don't have access to Photoshop, you can still use the program that we've been using in one of our classes. It's called Photopea.com. I'll have a link to the assignment so that you can find it real quick. It's loading up, and looks a lot like Photoshop. There it is, and let's get started. I'm gonna go and I want to find a website to mimic. And of course, by mimic I mean we're just going to try to make something that looks like it, just something similar. I did a Google search for simple website design samples, and I got a whole bunch of good stuff. Don't get too involved. Don't think you have to do the whole website. Just one page, the front, that will do fine. And it can be something simple. It can be something complicated. Just don't, like I said, don't spend way too much time on it. This is going to be a quick and easy assignment. Okay, so I'm looking at some of these. They have a lot of text, and that's fine. I'm trying to look for one that has enough elements to replicate. So I like this one. It's got some cool navigation buttons. It's got a logo that's simple enough to replicate, and there's also some pictures at the bottom. I'm going to open up the site. Well, actually, this site has the sample inside, and I think it was for a health company. I forget the name of it. Was it United Healthcare? I think I used to have that insurance. United Healthcare right there. Okay, well, and I'm going to keep this open since it's already a picture of the website itself. I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'll bring it back occasionally so that you can see what I'm working on. I'll put it over here on the side. In the meantime, I'm going to start in Photopea by creating a new document. I'll say File, New. And I'm going to call this, let's call it 13 since it's assignment 13. And I'll say 13 website. Call it whatever you want as long as you turn it into the correct assignment in eCampus. It should be fine. Then the background will remain white, and I'm going to pick from the screen menu at the bottom. Make this a VGA size. It's 640 by 480. That's a standard size. That used to be the size of the monitors that we used to use a long time ago, back in the 80s and 90s. So it should fit in our project. I'll click on Create, and sure enough, here's the screen. It's standard size and pretty good enough to get going. So I'm gonna be making a copy of this website. I want to keep it here a little bit closer by so that I can switch to it back and forth a little bit easier. Okay, so there it is, and it's got a lot of blue, and it's got some nice text in there. It's got a few images here that we can probably get something similar from other places, and should be all right. So okay, so we have this we do have this logo on top, we have a search box, we have a menu. Let's stick to the basic parts. The background is white, and that's great. I'm gonna pick a blue that looks something like that, first of all, to have something going. My foreground color is in the top box here. It's already some kind of green. I'm gonna click on it to get the color picker out. I'm gonna hit the blue family. I like this function in Photopea better than the one in Photoshop. It already opened it, and I have a nice blue already set up. I do believe the one for this website is a little bit well, a bit lighter in some areas, definitely just as dark in others, and I'll stick with a hefty blue like that one. I'll click OK to accept it. This site has this nice menu that goes all the way across underneath the logo. So let's see, my background layer is locked, it says, so I'm just going to leave it as it is, and I'm going to create a new layer by clicking on the new layer icon. And in order to get started on that menu, rather than creating individual buttons, I'm going to click on the rectangle tool. Yours may be at the bottom. We found out in a online meeting earlier that maybe I have two 2 columns because my screen is a little bit shorter than most. Let me see if I turn off those background. No, it's still there. Okay, so but find the foreground color, click on it, get it out like that. That's fine. That's not what I was looking for. I was looking for actually the shapes. The shapes, mine already is on a rectangle. I'll click on it and the rectangle is selected. I have ellipses, lines, parametric shapes, and custom shapes. I'm going to click on rectangle, and this right here, although there are multiple buttons in a website, I'm going to recreate them by just drawing one rectangle that goes all the way across, something like that. This one is blue because the fill color is blue. Rather, it's red. I'm not having problems. Click on that. I'll click on the blue again to select it, and hopefully this will let me change it. Maybe it will let me change it at some point. Yes, and I can make it just a little bit lighter, somewhere around there. Click OK. I'm learning the process of Photopea as I go along. It's very similar to Photoshop, so that's always good. The fact that the square goes off to the side doesn't matter because the image holds it inside. If you want to bring in the rectangle, change it in size, you can click on the transform controls button and bring this down from the size. It's on the side rather, so that you only have that much. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons that go from left to right, and well, I was thinking maybe I'm going to make it a little bit shorter, just a little bit shorter. Maybe rather than having the one across, maybe having multiple ones wouldn't be such a bad idea. By going across, I was planning on putting multiple squares inside to sort of delineate where the buttons end. But since I just changed the size on this, I can always just bring down the size of the button horizontally like that and accept that. I can do that by clicking on the move tool and tell it to turn off the transform controls. Layer 1, I can right click on it and tell it to duplicate the layer, so that will make a copy. I can press shift, and while pressing shift, move the copy that I just made, and then do the same thing with the one that was just created. I'll duplicate the layer. I got more. I'll make a couple more copies because 1, 2, 3, I have 5 buttons that I have to do. And oh, by the way, I like this, they copied this from Photoshop too. You can right click on the box that I just copied, select it, and it will select it on the menu. If you select the first one the same way, right click and layer 1, it will select that one. That's good to find things when you're looking for them. I'll right click again to make one more copy, so I have 2 or 3 copies going, and I'll make one final one so I have all my buttons. Right click, duplicate layer, and I'm going to take this one all the way to the edge. My original website has 2 longer buttons, the second one and the 5th one. So this one that I just copied, if I go to transform controls, I can make it a little bit wider, go maybe up to here, press enter to accept. Then the first one, I think it's a home, so it's not so long. I'll make this one a bit shorter. I'm going to right click on the second one, which is the other one that's kind of long, and so now I have 1, 2, 3, I have 5 buttons. If I want to, I'm going to try this. I haven't tried it in Photopea. I know it works in Photoshop, but if I click on the first layer and press the shift key and select all of the layers, now these are all selected, there should be an item on the menu here. It says equal gaps. It says something else on Photoshop, but by doing that, clicking it, then it spaced them out a little bit more evenly. And hopefully if I right click on all of the selected layers, I can do something like convert to a smart object. That means that everything would be in one layer. You could merge the layers, so you would end up with just one. Or let's see, that's all I'm kind of familiar with. I'm going to convert this to a smart object, so then that way this becomes just one layer. That's called layer 1 copy 4. I'm going to see if I can I rename this. I still haven't figured out how to rename it. If you can, please send me an email, let me know that you figured it out. I'm sure that it's not difficult. I'm just overwhelmed sometimes by all the different software that I have to use every day. At any rate, so that is now made, and I have home, individuals and profiles, employers, Medicare, find a doctor. It's a little icon there with a medical icon. I'm going to start to type some stuff. I know home, individuals and families, etc. So I'll click on T for text, and I'll come close to where I need to be. My text color currently is black. I'm going to click on that and select white. I'll click on the palette, take it all the way to the top left as I click and drag. Click OK again, so that when I click with my text tool and it loads up the text, it's going to be white. So I'll type in home. Now this is pretty large text compared to the actual website, so one thing that's cool about Photopea, it works just like Photoshop. If you double click on the T, it will select all your text, and I'm going to make this smaller. Not so small, 2 is too small. How about somewhere around 12 would probably be okay. So I have 12 pixels. I'll click on my move tool again, and I can use the cursor keys to sort of center that. The next one says individuals and families, so I'm going to right click on the home text that I have, duplicate the layer, and scroll it or click and drag it to the right, and individuals and families, I'll say individuals and families, and I got lucky there with the size, maybe. Okay, and I'll right click on individuals and families and duplicate the layer again, click and drag. I'm always holding the shift key so that it stays in the same level as the other one. I'll double click that T and say employers, and for the third one or fourth one, it's Medicare. I'm gonna press, do I have a history button here? I think I do. Control Z. I went back too far, but I think that this will be okay. Individuals and families, and I think I wanted to say something else. I do believe I said Medicare. Medicare's actually the next one, but that's okay. Now that I typed that, I could actually just make a copy, duplicate the layer, and do the same thing that I did with the others. Just move it over here. I can still use Medicare. This Medicare should have been employers, and I'll type that again. And finally, Medicare copy, the last one. I right click, make my last copy, duplicate the layer, and bring it to the right. Find a doctor is the last one. Okay, so now I have the buttons typed out: home, individuals and families, employers, Medicare, and find a doctor. And they're somewhat centered in their site, so I'm clicking and holding shift while I move this. Medicare copy, same thing. Notice how I don't have to actually click on top of the text as long as I'm pressing and holding the shift key. I'll right click on employer, select it, move this over to the right. Same thing with individuals and families, and home finally, and sort of do this quickly there. Okay, so now I have this other lighter blue box, which I can't tell if it's got a gradient or not. It probably does. So I'm going to go back to my rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw another rectangle underneath, and I'll make it as big as I need to, so about that big I would say, and it's blue. The fill, and I'm going to leave it as blue. I'm not going to mess too much with the gradient right now. This is still allowing me to bring it in a little bit closer, and the opacity of this color, of this shape, of this layer anyway, I'm going to change it to maybe 50% of that, so it's much lighter blue, and this is actually, it's so light that it looks purple. Let's make it even lighter. How about 25%? I think that'll be fine. So we have the word explore kind of large there. I'm going to type that with the text tool. try again. I think maybe if I click on the move tool, I can turn off the transform controls, and then that way it will let me, actually maybe because I'm clicking on top of the box, it doesn't like that. So text is selected. I'm going to click somewhere where there's nothing, and I see that I've been creating all these text layers. So maybe I should look before I leap. Let's delete that. So here I was started to type something, and I see that it's already kind of typed in there. The word that I need is explore, so I'll type that, EXPLORE. I'm going to select it all. It looks like it's white on white, and that's why we can't see it. This one is blue, and we already have a blue selected. If I click on the color for text, I can select the blue. Except it didn't like something, so I'm going to retype the word explore. I think I deleted it. I switched back and forth so much. I have the text selected. I'll make it larger. This looks to be a bold Arial, kind of like what we have here. I'm going to click on book and see if I can get bold, and I should be able to. So there you go, explore. This one looks a little bit more like the other one. There's all these other things. There's shoes and food and exercise. So where do I get that stuff from? Earlier in another assignment, I presented you with an option for free imaging. Just making this even larger. And the website is called Pixabay. I'll click on that to visit, and we're looking for, let's see, how about some tennis shoes? If you can't find the exact same thing, don't worry about it. Not tennis shows, how about tennis shoes? So actually look at this. This kind of looks like, well, it looks familiar, but I see we can't use it. It's a Shutterstock. We have to buy that, and don't buy anything for this class. Scroll down, see what else I can find. Well, like I said, it doesn't have to look the same. So what would I do in a situation like that? I have access to these shoes, which actually would be kind of simpler to cut out. So why don't I right click and try to copy that image here, go back to Photopea. I'm going to go all the way to the top. All of these, find a doctor, etc. I thought that I had already made that. No, I did not. I'm going to select all of these and tell it to become a shape, a smart object. And that way I don't have to deal with that too much. Well, find a doctor, I see that I misspelled that. What if I double click it? If I double click it, I can actually see the thing come up, and I can correct the text so that it says doctor at the end, ROTCTOR. Let's go back to the original layer if I can. Oh wow, this suddenly became very complicated. Oh, because it opened up a brand new document. I'll close this. Okay. And actually I was able to correct doctor, DOCTOR. Okay, so I was dealing with the shoes that I copied. I'm going to paste them, edit and paste. And here's the shoes. I'm going to press transform controls to make them smaller. I'm pressing and holding the shift key, and I'll just put them here. See, the original one has them sliced at the bottom, and so how would I deal with that? I'm going to press this button again to make sure that I can play with it. I zoomed in a little bit. By the way, this is the same shortcut as Photoshop. It's Control Spacebar gives me the plus, Control Spacebar plus the Alt key then gives me a minus. That's the same thing as Control plus, Control minus. I'm going to now see if I can find the Where is this? It's going to be not polygonal lasso. It's going to be the magic wand. It's inside this blob here, magic wand, and I can select the area outside of the shoes real easy. Press the backspace and delete them. So now the shoes are cut out. Pressing Control 0 to move out. I also have some other items. I'll have like a water bottle, and I'm gonna search for that here. Water bottle. One that I can easily cut, hopefully. Well, how about this one? This looks like a good candidate. I'm going to, and it's already transparent. How about that? I'm gonna right click and copy that image. Come back to Photopea and paste it, Control V. I'm going to click on the move tool so that I can get the transform controls. Pressing the shift key, I make this smaller. I'm not worried too much about cutting them off just yet. I just want to have a few images. Notice how the original had, I think, like 4 or 5. I'm gonna do 3, 4 tops. Actually, they got 6. What else do they have there? I can't tell. This looks like a jump rope. Let's see if I find something like that, jump rope. And those are sponsored, so not those. Something else that has to do with exercise, maybe. This is also something that I have to buy. I'm not gonna use that. What else do they use? They used, I can't tell what that is, and this looks like some sort of a carabiner. Well, I got a couple of options, but these are free. Yes, they're free. Okay, so I'm gonna right click on that and copy the image. Come back to Photopea and paste it, Control V. Since I'm still in transform controls, I can move it. If I hover close to the corner, see how the shape of the icon turns to sideways, and it allows you to rotate. So I did rotate it. I pressed shift while I was doing it, and I'll make this just large enough to pop up here. I'm gonna do one more thing just so that it all gets filled out. Click on move tool and click on transform controls. And what can I get here? I don't know. Is that a phone? Let's look for a picture of a smartphone. Smartphone. And one that's easy to use, like this one. It's already cut out, or not cut out, but it's got good colors. I'll paste it. Well, too good. It's too transparent. I think this is just the outside of it. So let's make this smaller. One thing that I could do to sort of rescue this, by which I mean make it not so translucent, I'm going to go to the layer below that, create a new one, a new layer, by clicking on this icon. And I did, but I see that it doesn't do it on top of, it does it below. That's interesting. Like I said, I'm learning new things about Photopea every day. So in that new layer, I'm going to use the rectangular select, which is the rectangular marquee in Photoshop, and draw the space that would be occupied by the phone somewhat, and go to edit and fill it with white. Click OK, and now it's got a background of sorts. And make it a little bit smaller, and turn off the transform controls. I'm going to click select and deselect, so nothing is selected, and now I have enough things in here. So let me see if I have anything extra. I have explore plus all the menu things on top. I have the shoes. Oh, I can just click on it. How about that? I'll just say shoes. And this one is the bottle. Double click on that and name it bottle. The layer 3 is the carabiner. Maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong. It's at Carboner. And oh, I have two of these because these two are the phone. Maybe I can select them both, right click and say merge layers. Now I have only one layer, layer 4, double click and say this is the phone. And I'm going to go out on a limb because I don't know what's going to happen next. Shape 1, everything needs to be sort of inside of shape 1. See how everything's cut off here? And if this works anything like Photoshop, first of all, maybe if I click on phone, the very top layer, and then press and hold the shift key and click find a doctor, that's everything else that's inside. I wish it didn't say find a doctor. Well, just then phone, carboner, bottle, and shoes is what I need. Right click on that, convert that to a smart object. And then the shape of 1, I want this to be the selection that I use to keep everything inside. How would I do that? I can't do it the same way as I would in Photoshop, or maybe did it let me do that? I pressed and held the control key and clicked on shape 1 and everything selected. I'm going to see if it will allow me to edit, and well, actually if I could mask this. But mask what? Mask the phone. There you go, now everything's selected inside. So actually a simpler way of doing that without all the stuff that I did, I'm going to deselect this, select and deselect. You could use the rectangular select or whatever shape, whatever tool you want to use. Make sure that it's selected like this, and then you can always just add a mask, add a raster mask. And now that's inside. Find easier ways to use your benefits for any path you take. So that's just text that's going to be here at the bottom when I click on the text tool. And for now, I'm just going to say some text goes here, and I know it's white on white, so let's click on that. Make this readable by turning the text black. I'm going to make it larger by changing the size from 12 to, let's say, maybe somewhere around 30. And it actually says find easier ways to use your benefits. I now see that the text is probably too large, but I can expand the box for 1, and then double click the T to select it and make it smaller. So from 30 I'll take it down to 24. And that might still be too big. I'm gonna double click the T again and take the text down to 18. And center this so that, like this, the second one will be centered for any path you take. Okay, so now I just need some pictures, and I'm just going to go back into Pixabay and do a search for happy people. These are pictures, but not necessarily of people. They're cartoons. I had selected vector graphics, did I? How about images? So this looks like a good candidate. I'll copy this and bring it back here to the very top of my layers. Press Ctrl V to paste. Bring these folks down. I'm going to click on Transform Controls. Press and hold the Shift key and bring it down. I see that they're all the same size. They're kind of rectangular. And I'm going to put them down here at the very bottom of the page, because that's where they have them originally. Similar size. Let's see, let's go look for some more happy people. And I have here baby and mom. I'll copy that image. Back to Photopea, press Ctrl V to paste. Make this smaller. Pressing that shift key so that it stays the same. And I'll put them here and see if I can sort of make it around the same size. And then the last one more. How about this happy family here? I'll click on copy image, Control V to paste, and bring them down so that they're kind of the same size, kinda. Like I said, I'm just sort of trying to make this to look the same way. So that layer 1, 2, and 3 are those photos. If I select them all, and I do that by clicking on one of them, pressing and holding the shift key, clicking the next one, clicking the last one, and hovering on top of equal gaps, and they spaced out a little bit. Now I'm using my cursor keys to move them a little bit. Only thing I'm missing now is the logo up here, United Healthcare. And I think that I might be able to find that, United Healthcare, because I'm sure they have the website, the real website. And see what happens on their website. Maybe, well, there it is. Right click, copy, image, come back here, paste it, and make it the right size. Or at least try to. Shift, holding the shift key, and I can use the cursor keys to move it a little bit. And then there's some buttons over here and some text. Actually, this is the real one. The one that we're looking for has a search, Spanish, and already remember sign in. So that's just going to be some text that needs to be put here. I'll put in search. Make it smaller, maybe 12. I don't know if anybody's wondering where do I come up with the numbers for the size of the text. They're very definite because back in the day, I mean a long time ago, before any of you were born, and maybe your parents were in school themselves, we used Macintosh exclusively, and Macintosh had a very definite set of sizes. They weren't always the same. Already a member, sign in. I'm going to copy the search duplicate layer and put it up here and change that to say sign in. And maybe, why not, if I go to shapes, where were the shapes? This was a rectangle, there's an ellipse, there's a custom shape. I don't know if I click on rectangle, will I be able to give it curves? Yes, corner radius currently is 0, but if I go from 0 to, I don't know, 10, and I draw something, and see it kind of looks a little bit more rounded. And I'm not going to fill it with anything. I'm going to give it a stroke though of another color. I don't know about red, how about blue? So that'll go here. And is it the best site? No, well, not necessarily, but it's fairly close to what they have. It's a good start. And be sure that whenever you do your site, you don't have to do this website. If you followed everything through, you spent the last 35 minutes with me and you've done this, please turn it in. If you find a simpler one, by all means do it. If you want to create your own, as some of you already have, by all means do that. Just make sure that in your PowerBook, you go, I'm not on a PowerBook unfortunately right now, you select save as PSD, you save that to your Google Drive, and then turn that in to get a grade. I'm gonna call, well, I already called it 13 websites, so I'm gonna save it because it was a lot of work, or enough work to say I want to show this to somebody else at some point. Any questions, please let me know.